in Fremantle, in Waverley Road, Fremantle. I was born in the house, as babies were in those days. Well, my daughter was born in the house. Yes, I was born there in number 12 Waverley Road in Fremantle. I attended Western District Boys School, which is up in Shirley Road, just along from Foy's Corner, I expect you. Well, I was there till I was 14, but I left school and I was going to serve an apprenticeship, which couldn't start until I was 16, so I had the 2 years to fill in, which I did by getting a job as an office boy with Pirelli's, or Pirelli General, which had quite a large factory down the bottom end of town, facing the old walls. It's all gone now. Well, I was there for 2 years to fill in before I started my apprenticeship, which started when I was 16. Which I did, and my apprenticeship was with John I. Thornycroft of Woolston. To get there, I had to go over the floating bridge every day, backwards and forwards, and put in 5 years there. Well, during the war, Thornycroft were very busy building various ships. The largest of them would have been minesweepers and destroyers. The smallest of them would be wooden-built air-sea rescue launchers and torpedo boats. We were very busy, and every launch pad there had a ship going up on it in those days. And the great moment came, of course, when one would be launched and everyone would stop work and go down to see the launch. And some dignitaries or other would come along, and I named this ship sort of thing, and smash a bottle of champagne on the bow. There was one sort of amusing day when this charming lady smashed the bottom of champagne on the ship, but the ship didn't move, and everyone was stood there so embarrassed. In fact, it didn't move, and the launch party was called off, I suppose, and it was some time later that the chaps managed to get the ship to launch, and by that time everyone had gone home. But I went through the bombing which Southampton received, and had many close misses. What's to be said about it? We got sort of a funny thing to say, we sort of got used to it in a way. We would go about our usual business. If we were in the cinema, for instance, it would come up on the screen that the sirens had gone, and one or two might go out, but in a minute you might hear the attack guns start going. Then more would go out, but a lot of people stood there, as I did, stayed in there. We thought we were safe there as anywhere. I'm out with my girlfriend at the cinema, and fortunately it was a Saturday night, and my dad had taken my mother to his club where they had social evenings. My brother and sister were both evacuated. And when we come home, a neighbour was sort of running about in the street saying, "You've had a bomb in your back garden, Norman." And we had a bomb on the air raid shelter. And it fell in the base of the air raid shelter. It sort of pushed it all up together. It was made of 3 pieces, the air raid shelter, and it sort of shut in the middle. So the whole family had been killed on an ordinary night. We went out to Romsey and got some digs out of Romsey. So from there on in, we travelled out to Romsey to go to work. Special bosses, because a lot of people went out of town, and a good bus service, Hanson Dorset bus service, is running from the surrounding area, certainly from Romsey, where I was. Yes, as I say, there were some organised Hanson Dorset buses used to go out at night, and people would go out and spend the night in the bus. But we didn't do that. We were out there and had a very pleasant time, actually. Your first experience of the countryside, and I loved it. See the hedges coming out in the springtime, and the cattle in the fields and all those kind of... I come in once again, as I did 2 or 3 times a week, to the dance of the Guildhall, and I came in and everything was quite normal between Romsey and Southampton. when I'm going back at 11 o'clock at night to Romsey, every side road, every lane was full of vehicles everywhere. They just appeared from nowhere. Tanks, guns, mostly lorries, it seems. And the troops were, it was all British troops, I might add, what I saw. And, of course, it was an amazing sort of thing, but I didn't understand until the next day that it came up to D-Day. So I saw all the lanes and the roads were lined with vehicles. And the next day was D-Day. I was in the Home Guards at that time, Ed, at Romsey. They didn't know what to do with us, I suppose. We were supposed to be guarding the railway line if they've ever heard of such trouble. I saw a lot of troops and tanks going, and the tanks came through, and I remember they tore all the roads up because they drove these tanks right through the centre of town to load down in the pier somewhere, and this chopped up all the road surfaces that went. It was tidied up, of course, but it made a terrible mess.
Were you living with your family in Romsey?
Yes, I was living at home with Mum and Dad. My brother and sister, younger, were evacuated.
Were they?
They're in Somerset way somewhere.
Oh,
And I was being older. I was at home, yes. Well, we weren't aware that it was a special role. We knew it was an important role, and lots of ships went in and went out to Southampton all the time. Any of my time was spent in the town in what is now the Mayflower, which was then called the Empire, which was a cinema, which used to have 3 shows a week, and it was a very good cinema to go to, because being built as a theatre, it had a gods, the 3rd story, and you could get up there quite cheaply, and there had a lot of people, so we were in the sort of habit of going there every Sunday, us young chaps. Now, you could get in there. When I started chasing girls, it was dancing on the Royal Pier, and Guildhall every Saturday night, and then there was probably one midweek in the pier, as I recall, and any other little dances we could go to. They had a bit of talking about soldiers, had a little bit of trouble with some American soldiers in the Guildhall. I don't know what happened. Well, a small number, say 5 or 6, American soldiers came in, and somehow a ruckus started. What caused it, I don't know. But what I did know, have I told you this already? What I do know is the American police came in, and they knocked them all out with their truncheons and dragged them out. It was a shocking affair.
I wonder why.
They was very vicious. They wouldn't just take them, they knocked them all out. Well, the common was used by both the American and the British troops. As you go up the avenue, where the carriage is on the left-hand side, British troops were all in that side of the common, and they were on that side of the common, and they were mostly under canvas, as I recall. There were a few wooden huts built there for various reasons, but by and large they were under canvas, and you can still see the concrete foundations in the ground up there now where the few wooden huts the British soldiers had. But the Americans had quite substantial wooden huts they built their side, and after they disappeared and went after France, gradually at the end of the war, those huts were occupied by squatters. The accommodation was very hard to come by, what with all the damage of the war and one thing and the other, and people squatted there in these American huts, and the council adopted them and charged a rent and laid on services such as electricity. What happened about sanitation, I really don't know, but people lived there for quite a while, in the many months after the war, certainly. The public were quite well informed. I don't know that they were misinformed. I think we were kept up to date with what was happening. When my apprenticeship finished, this was just as the war was finishing, and let's see, yes, just as the war finished, my apprenticeship finished, and I was called up for reasons I still don't fully understand, because the war was really over. But they just kept up calling people up. So I was called up in the RAF. I was in the RAF for about 3 years.